John Moses Browning is widely known as the most prolific gun designer to ever live, making many innovations to sporting firearms and weapons technology that have been used in the United States military for an entire century. Browning's advanced designs and inventions changed the weapons technology used in the U.S. military permanently, giving America just one more great advantage in World War I, World War II, and many other wars to come. In Browning's early life, he grew up with guns and spent nearly all of his time during childhood working on them in his father's shop. Without his father, it's possible that he never would have found his love for designing, and he never would have influenced the military in the way he did. John Moses Browning was born on January 23, 1855 in Ogden, Utah to Jonathan Browning, an excellent gun designer, blacksmith, and Mormon, and one of his wives, Elizabeth Child. Jonathan Browning was a polygamist like many Mormons and had 3 wives and 24 children, but the one who took after him as a gun designer was John Moses. John's childhood was ambitious and set him up for greatness. John Moses Browning built his first firearm at the age of 10 years old, from scrap parts his father deemed unusable. He managed to kill 3 chickens in one shot with his first creation upon testing it. When John Moses showed his father his accomplishment, Jonathan questioned him. "John Moses, you're going on 11. Can't you make a better gun than that?" The rifle was built from a broken barrel and scrap wood. The rifle also had no real trigger mechanism. His father pushed him to make something better, seeing his potential, and that he took after him as a fine gunsmith at such a young age. John Moses Browning's early life can be related to an idea popularized by Malcolm Gladwell. In order to become an expert at something, one must work hard at it for at least 10,000 hours. John Moses Browning had accomplished this in gunsmithing before he hit puberty. He tinkered and learned from his father throughout his teenage years and eventually started a business with 2 of his brothers designing and manufacturing firearms. The first marketable gun he produced was at the age of 23, which quickly became one of the most profitable firearms in the Intermountain West. Within a few years, they had constructed about 600 of the handcrafted rifles and were expanding their business very slowly. An employee from the Winchester Repeating Arms Company purchased one of these rifles and presented it to one of his higher-ups, T.G. Bennett. He rushed to Ogden, Utah to meet these boys that made this fine firearm and possibly make a deal. When he got to Ogden, John Moses gladly sold him the rights to this rifle for a large sum of money, $8,000, which was a lot at the time. The deal made between John Moses and Bennett is really what brought his first famous designs into the light. He was to leave the job of manufacturing firearms and do what he truly desired with Winchester, designing them. The deal that they made that day was the very beginning of an alliance that would last the next 19 years. Soon after the formation of this relationship, John Moses presented one of his signature creations to Winchester, what would soon be called the Winchester Model 1886 lever-action repeating rifle, and be sold all across America. The rights to it were purchased by Winchester from Browning for the grand sum of $50,000. Winchester then requested a black powder repeating shotgun of similar design, the Winchester Model 1887, which they received and purchased the rights to only 8 months later. The firearm became the first widely used lever-action repeating shotgun in the world, and was produced in great numbers until 1901. It was used by people all across America, especially Welch Fargo stagecoach drivers who needed something better than a double-barrel coach gun to fend off criminals and highwaymen. Browning's innovative designs and improvements to the lever-action guns of the late 1800s were extremely important to Browning's and Winchester's success at the time. John Moses was instrumental in designing most of Winchester's later model lever-action rifles and lever and pump-action shotguns in the 1800s. Browning produced 11 new firearms in the next 2 short years, and the patents for them were all purchased by Winchester. Browning then went on to develop dozens more firearms in the late 1880s and 90s. Some of Winchester's most popular firearms since their beginnings came right from the mind of John Moses Browning. John Moses would throughout his life develop some of the most innovative features of modern firearms, such as the pump-action, gas and recoil-operated semi- and fully automatic weapons, among dozens of other modern features he solely invented or popularized in one of his many creations. The story goes, as he was watching a sports shooter shoot trap, he noticed the muzzle blast from the gun actually disturbed the reeds between the shooter and his target. This gave him the idea to harness this blast and create a gas-operated automatic action, which he did invent and is now the basic design for every semi-automatic gas system like the AR-15. However, this is just a story. After leaving Winchester due to some disputes, he went to Belgium to work with F.N. Hirschland. With them he produced his new long recoil-operated semi-auto shotgun, the Browning Auto 5 or A5. He produced many new firearms with FN until his death, like many different shotguns, rifles and pistols, now of which many were named after him instead of the company he worked for. Eventually, some of his designs began to interest the U.S. military. Over the coming years, he would design guns for the military that would eventually become his true legacy, one that hasn't been forgotten and likely won't be for many years to come. Browning's famous BAR, or Browning Automatic Rifle, would be adopted by the military for use in the First World War, World War II, and in wars in many decades to come. Same goes for his incredibly popular military service and civilian sporting pistol, the M1911 45 ACP semi-automatic handgun. This was in fact the first completed firearm in history to feature a slide combined with a bullet that was cycled by harnessed gas pressure to eject a spent cartridge. This new handgun would be used in the American military from then through every single war to the present day, being the most popular handgun in American history. An edition of the Pittsburgh Gazette-Times from 1911, the year of the pistol's induction, references its superiority to every other handgun it went up against to be chosen to be used in the military. It directly states, "At the last test, over 6,000 consecutive shots were fired from the Colt for endurance, and the arm remained in perfect condition, maintaining its record for perfect scores and outranking its competitor in accuracy, rapidity of action, and durability." This goes to show the abilities of Browning as a gunmaker, designer, and the details that went into making his products the very best. Interestingly, a 1965 edition Baltimore Sun newspaper article states that Browning's first automatic pistol, a .32 caliber, was used to assassinate Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the event that supposedly drove the world into the Great War. As we can see from this, Browning's designs reached and influenced not only America, but countries all around the world. John Moses Browning invented many more guns to be used by the military. In fact, the outdated and hard-to-maintain Lewis gun is the only known machine gun used by America in World War II that wasn't in some way linked to Browning and his designs. He would, in 1917, release his design for a fully automatic belt-fed .30 caliber machine gun, known as the M1917. According to a 1938 newspaper article on the weapon, it was initially used in the First World War, and it talked about the light machine gun that it replaced, which was also of Browning's design. It was used in infantry, on vehicles, and surprisingly by the cavalry of the National Guard, but perhaps Browning's greatest military firearm-related accomplishment was the gun that was based off of the M1917, the Browning M2. Browning M2 50 caliber machine gun, coined Modus by the American troops that used it, is essentially a scaled-up version of the M1917. It is an air-cooled, recoil-operated, belt-fed machine gun developed at the end of World War I to be used during the Second World War. This high-caliber machine gun was used in World War II as an infantry weapon, as well as on tanks, planes, armored vehicles, naval ships, and in many other applications in the U.S. military. The M2 is regularly built and simple to service and maintain. It is well loved by the American military due to its seemingly unsurpassable sustainability and functionality, and it has been used in the U.S. military for over 90 years and will continue to be used until something better is made, which is a very tall order. Every firearm ever attempting to oppose the M2 in service has been phased out due to the M2 being superior, even after its 90-plus year life in the military. It challenges the Brown Bess musket for a spot among history's longest-serving firearms. Some early design history is mentioned in a lengthy article all about the M2 machine gun in the 1948 edition of the Chicago Daily Tribune, written only 3 years after the M2's first use in battle. It describes one of the earliest versions of the Browning 50 caliber machine gun, a water-cooled, longer version of the M2 machine gun meant to be used by ground troops as an anti-aircraft weapon. However, it weighs 122 pounds, 40 pounds heavier than the air-cooled version. The air-cooled M2 was initially made for aircraft, and a heavy barrel which could take more heat was added for use with ground troops. The Browning M2 machine gun is at the very top of many lists of influential firearm designs. The incredible design quality of this game-changing weapon shows John Moses Browning's genius as an inventor and designer. What may just be his greatest work of all was and is just that, game-changing. The extreme power and versatility of the cartridge specially designed by Browning for this gun makes it perfect for war. It has been featured in every war since World War II, and it is incredibly effective against infantry, unarmored or lightly armored vehicles, boats, aircraft, and almost everything else it has been tested against, not to mention its incredible accuracy. The accuracy potential of this firearm is incredible. The M2 machine gun equipped with a scope and fired semi-automatically could be used as a long-range sniper rifle. This was done in the Korean and Vietnam Wars. In fact, a record for the longest recorded sniper kill at 2,500 yards was set by Carlos Hathcock in 1967 using this configuration, a record which was not broken until 2002. Upon formally questioning a fellow history student about his opinion on the weapon and its effects on the U.S. military, as well as John Moses Browning's effect on the past, present, and future of the military, he gave an interesting response. He stated that Browning's M2 50 caliber machine gun was and is quite possibly the single most important and influential firearm ever invented. It changed the way World War II could have ended up, and the 50 caliber cartridge it fires is of equal importance due to its power and extreme versatility. Its design paved the way for and inspired countless other designs for weapons across the world. Although this is an opinion based on little citable research, it is certainly an intriguing proposal. This weapon alone changed fighting across all branches of the military fighting in World War II, as well as changing the way America fights all of the wars afterwards and to come. Many of his other designs had a massive impact on our armed forces as well, but it's pretty safe to say that the Ma-Deuce played a big role in bringing America to victory. When Browning finally settled down in Belgium working with F.N. Herstal, he immediately got to work doing what he did best, creating. He made many more guns for the military, like the 37mm autocannon, an enormous fully automatic gun that entered service in 1938 and was deployed in U.S. aircraft and on Navy PT boats during World War II. He always continued to make sporting guns, as that was where he began 50 years prior. His final completed firearm design was the Browning Superposed Over-Under Shotgun. On the day he died in 1926, he was in his son's workshop, Vale A. Browning, designing a new semi-automatic pistol. The gun was later completed by a Belgian designer and John Moses' son Vale, and became known as the wildly famous and successful Browning High Power, chambered in 9mm parabellum. This gun is still being used by the Canadian and Australian militaries today. John Moses Browning worked hard his entire life and made an enormous impact on our military the entire way, from the BAR to the M1911 and the big loud M2 machine gun. His creations are historical masterpieces that changed firearms in America and its military from his humble beginnings in Ogden, Utah to the day he died and onward. And they certainly aren't going anywhere yet. These imaginative creations are written into history in the form of 128 total gun patents, and he was working on new designs until the day that he died, on November 26, 1926, in Liège, Belgium. Belgium at the time held great respect for Browning. In a newspaper article from 1922 published in the nearby city to Ogden, Utah, which was Salt Lake City, Browning was reportedly praised in Belgium and was honored as one of the world's greatest men. A quote from the article is John M. Browning, famous gun inventor of this city, is considered by the Belgians as one of the greatest men in the world. The United States military still uses many of his guns and dozens of the new technologies he released to the world. Many of the guns in the future will still have features that resemble in form and function to those of John Moses Browning's very own design. He has influenced the American military and the militaries of the world in a fantastic way, and even after his death, so many years ago, he will continue to influence it in the greatest way he can, by always giving America and its allies the tools we need to fight as best we can.